Today, we're going to be looking at the NAIC winning 60 from Cyrus Davis. She was able to pilot this Rapid Strike Urshifu deck to a victory. The intention of the archetype is to construct some really interesting turns with the help of your double gunner ability from your Inteleon VMAX, and in combination with your Radiant Alakazam, being able to painful spoons 2 counters from one of your Pokemon to one of your opponent's other Pokemon, as well as the Medicham's Yoga Loop option. We can take multiple turns, which is always a fantastic thing to go for, as the opponent cannot respond, and you're able to possibly take multiple threats off the board in one go, especially because we can take out Manaphy, that lower hit point Pokemon that stops us from sniping, can be dealt with by Medicham, enabling the full power of a G-Max Rapid Flow, which is a really huge attack in the deck, allowing us to put 120 on 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. The Urshifu VMAX also gives us great type coverage into Arceus decks, so the theory is that we have double gunner Yoga Loop plays against Gardevoir and Lost Box players. We have type coverage into Arc players as well, and that straight away just covers a huge chunk of the formats, which gives us some decent type coverage and matchups going around. You will notice that there are no respect being given to Mew, so it's a dodge rather than try and tech against it, although you could be playing Spiritomb or Drapion, which we have seen in the past. And we're also a little bit unfavoured into Lugia, I would say. However, they don't have easy ways of knocking us out cleanly either because of our high hit points, and we at the very least do have Cheryl, so we can try and construct some 2-hit KO plays and use the likes of Painful Spoons and Double Gunner to set things in range as well. So it's not quite a lost cause, but it's definitely a matchup you don't want to run into too much. So this is a risky deck for the World Championships in that you have to just really rely on the matchups that you face on the day, but the sort of statistics are on your side. We know that Gardevoir is probably going to be the most popular deck. We know that Lost Box is right on up there with popularity as well. So in theory, you should be facing the majority of decent matchups with this deck. So a really strong metagame choice. Outside of this, there's not too much else exciting going on with the deck list. It's just a ton of internal synergy. We have the Irida and the Energy Retrievals to help out with the double gunner. It also helps establish Octillery, which is a massive part of this deck, allowing us to tutor Rapid Strike cards once per turn. That can help get our Stadium to give us 3 retreat on pretty much everything. We have Rapid Strike Energy, which is massive just for attacking for 1 attachment with Intel or Urshifu. And it can also help cherry pick Korrina's focus as well in a pinch just for some additional draw. So very coherent strategy, but also one that's very flexible. There's a lot of attackers you can weave in and out of, and you have some really high hit point Pokemon at the helm trying to sponge hits and grant value over a number of turns. So enjoy the games and let me know what you think. If you're looking for PTCG live codes, make sure you check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code OmniPoke. Looks like we get to go first in our first game then. And our opening hand is actually really playable. VIP Pass, Ultra Ball with the Urshi start. Looking pretty good. Even have Supporter as well for turn 2. And our opponent has a Sableye, so we know we're up against a Lost Zone engine. The top deck of Intel is also decent. We only have 1 double gunner available to us though, so we might have a slower approach to, gunning down our opponent's board. Definitely something to monitor. I think the safest play is actually getting the Urshifu here. Yeah, that sounds like the smarter route, because certainly it is possible for Lost Zone builds to swing with Dragonite ASAP. So protecting around that sort of turbo. Turn 1 is going to be the strat here. We're going to promote our Urshifu after this escape rope. And they do have a Colress, so they've got a pretty decent start. VIP Colress as their first couple actions is nice. When you don't start the Confe, it typically is quite difficult to get to 7 and gate and do all those shenanigans straight away. Not impossible, and looks like they're continuing with their pivoting, with flower selecting. This will be their 4th card in the zone, after they quickly get Greninja developed. I am a little bit afraid of Shuriken. Getting rid of that Remoraid early is actually really painful for us. Also, just putting a Prep 90 onto either these Urshifus or the Inteleon would be setting up a Dragonite play as well, which is actually what they search now with their next VIP pass, so the opponent gets the full board and is going to Pokestop. But they did get a Manaphy developed, which is important against our Urshifu, of course, but it means they don't have the extra board space for the Confe, and typically they need Chorus for 3 in the Lost Zone, 2 in the Lost Zone, and then it should be 2 from Vacuum and 3 from Conphase. That's typically the easiest route to 7, so looks like they fall or don't quite have the combination of cards to get to 7, so they just attach Pass onto the Dragonite. That gives us the opportunity to develop Octillery, throw the tower down and refresh our hand. We are able to cherry pick the Medicham from prize cards here. And because we're likely just taking a prize with Gale Frost this turn, yeah, as we search out the Rapid Strike Energy, I definitely want to bench this next Inteleon just in case we take one from prize cards, because that would be ideal. Initiating the race, still pretty good, even though there's lower hit point Pokemon scattered around their board. Conphase is obviously a great thing that we can try and Yoga Loop onto, but there's a ton of options already on the opponent's board, so not too big of a deal. As the opponent is going to keep churning through their Lost Zone, second Chorus into Greninja, so they're working on a pretty solid hand size here. Also going to Vacuum. And Flower Select. There goes second Sableye. Looks like they're rodding pre-gates. It's normally a telltale sign. And we are seeing the Dragonite powered up. Now the Dragonite's interesting because obviously it deals damage to its own bench, which really helps us out, but the Lost Zone box players don't have many other options. They typically want to save the Raikou for when Inteleon's in the active position for us. So Dragonite is just the hardest hitter here. It does allow them to, as you see them turn attaching actually to their Greninja, it does allow them to set up for a Moonlight Shuriken play on our Urshifu, and we don't play Manaphy in the list, so the 250 is definitely the number to go for here. It just so happens that Dragonite damages its own bench quite heavily and gives us an easy route to take advantage of that with Loop Gunner plays. We're going to make a retreat play here for both, just so that I can open up Melony as our supporter for turn, re-establish the water, just to draw some cards here. Nothing too helpful, actually, so we are just going to go for the Spiral. We actually had a lot of more dangerous things in our range there. We were just lacking the water energy, but still getting some prep damage on the Dragonite isn't too shabby. It sets up a rapid flow play. So any prep damage is okay here. The one thing I'm a little bit afraid of is if a Raikou comes down this turn, it's the easiest way to take a 3-prize knockout. They could still go for the Greninja play, possibly go like finish off the Urshi and 90 the Octillery, or even just 90 the other Urshi would be okay. As it happens, the Raikou does come into play, but the gate goes actually to the Sableye. That could be another way they could deal with the Urshifu here. I don't have many easy things to promote. Looks like we're going to go into the next Urshifu. And yeah, just going to be a Lost Mine, so a lot better than what I was expecting that turn. I think a Greninja play would have been more dangerous, because obviously it's spreading more counters, and the Raikou play would be more dangerous. Now I get to keep my double gunners around, and it's looking very likely that I can Yoga Loop here. We actually pick up the water off the top, which is also really helpful. I can Nest Ball for Alakazam, and there's no doubt that we're going to be taking a Yoga Loop turn here. With the damage already scattered around the board, I can Irida for next Gunner, so that's always nice as well. And it really comes down to just what else do I want to get from here. Primarily, we just want the Inteleon. We already have access to Retrieval. Possibly even just second Retrieval there was the best choice, because I know I'm taking 2 turns, and I'm going Gunner Retrieval this turn already. Just debating where I want this extra damage. The Conphase is always a pretty reasonable choice. We can Ultra Ball just to grab our next VMAX, because we will be looking to Rapid Flow next turn as our sort of endgame combo. We will use our next Gunner, put the Manaphy down to 10 remaining, and we'll spoon off that final 10. So we'll be taking 2 prizes this turn by finishing off this Comfey and then Yoga Looping the Manaphy. And that puts us down to 3 prize cards remaining, and the Dragonite Sableye will actually close out the game. So we actually just have game here with not too many tricks required. We can retreat into Yoga Loop, and I've already just Rapid Strike searched the next Rapid Strike Energy, and with Manaphy cleared off the board and the opponent not able to respond because we're taking our second turn, we can just Rapid Flow the damaged Dragonite and the Sableye. So a nice way to close out. You can see Dragonite is an important attacker in their matchup, one of their only attackers in the deck, but it helps us in our mission, which really helps us in the matchup overall. Let's get into our second game. Looks like we get to go first again, which is nice. Our hand isn't quite as good, but we do have the Forest Seal Stone. And going first against what we just saw, Arcdura. It's a rerun of the finals of NAIC. And as we know, going first is a big advantage for whichever side of this you play. So feeling pretty confident that we can pretty much just deal with Arceus before it becomes a huge issue for us. And if that's the case, we're going to have a good time in the matchup. We can throw away 2 water quite happily. We already have the Energy Retrieval in hand. And that means we can Forest Seal Stone for VIP and just get more Pokemon developed. We already have the Octillery and the VMAX Inteleon in hand, so those are going to be our targets. And that really allows us to play out our hand really efficiently here. And even though we're sat on 3 cards, it's a really good 3 cards. So I wouldn't be surprised if the opponent doesn't hand disrupt here, but if they do, you know, we at least get to see new things. The Octillery would probably be forced to get just like Korrina's focus and hope for the best, so we'll see how that goes. The big thing here is the opponent only gets a basic energy attachment. Surprisingly, it goes on the active as well. That's a really risky play, I think. It should definitely go on the bench arc there. The only reason to attach active would be if it was double turbo, because now they're going to get pretty heavily punished. I attach immediately the Rapid Strike to the active so that I can pay retreat in the very worst case scenario to get a Gale Thrust in. And now we have the option of Ultra Balling for Octillery to grab possibly Stadium to protect the Rapid Strike energy on Medicham, but also could just go for another Urshifu hit. Yeah, I actually like this a lot more, because now we're expecting our opponent to then just go into the next arc. Either they just Trinity Charge to Dura, or they find V-Star Raihan and respond on us. And it means by finding the proactive second Urshifu, I can simply just retreat again and do another Gale Thrust play, and limit the opponent to just 1 attacker, essentially, after this arc goes down. So we're really well prepped now. Second Urshifu is absolutely massive in the matchup, so that we don't sort of let up on our early game pressure. So the opponent actually does have the right hand just raw in their 4-card hand, which is a pretty big high roll. But now it allows them to Starbirth. Obviously, Double Turbo will be one of those choices. Possibly just VMAX is their next choice here. Looks like Umbreon DTE was the selection, and they're just going to hit us for 180. And they pretty much have to power up Dura here. Yeah. Okay. So I've just outlined what our best option is. It's pretty obvious just to go in with our next Urshifu here. We can tutor the tower. I can also horn back the next arc and give ourselves a really easy prize map here. Our opponent's at 6-card hand, so we probably don't want to play the Iono. I could just research here. Throw away the rest of the hand. I feel like that's a pretty decent shout. Just because it's going to take some real bricking from opponents using Iono or Judge for us to be in trouble here, really. As we are just 2 prize cards away. It's not as easy as it looks because we don't play Boss's Orders in the list, so we can't just take out Arc next turn. It's still probably going to be a combination of Rapid Flows, Double Gunners, and Spoons and stuff like that, so it's not necessarily wrapped up, especially as the opponent is able to Discovery out the V-Star for even more hit points. They're also going to Dark Signal up the Urshifu and finish it off with their Duraludon. We do have a couple of Melony in hand, which is definitely solid for us here, because Rapid Flow is definitely going to be our course of action to close the game. We will play the Melony to draw 3. And we actually hit 2 really big cards there. We hit Retrieval and Zam. So now we can put the Arceus down to 120 hit points remaining with this Rapid Flow, and it really just puts pressure on the opponent to Iono us, because otherwise we're sat with game in hand with a Rapid Flow into Rapid Flow game plan. I feel like I probably should attach the Water Energy to the Inteleon here, just in case they get hand disrupted. So maybe a small oversight there, because one of the only things that could go wrong here is if we do get hit with Iono, they just hit us in the face and I don't have combo, and I can't hit it into the Dura. So I would just be like retreating into an Inteleon passing, which isn't great. But if I had attached a Water to Inteleon, I was a little bit more robust against hand disruption, because I don't need Gunner at this stage, because I've already set the arc up for what I need. However, the opponent doesn't have hand disruption. They can just Adventurous Discovery, so we have a very easy Melony reattach Rapid Flow for the game. game plan there. So I think one of the only things that could have gone wrong is if they do go for the Iono plus hit, and then off their like random 3-card hand, they had access to their next Umbreon or their next boss, and I didn't hit like Cheryl or anything like that, so I think we're pretty far ahead, and that's pretty much the matchup. When you go first, you're going to be punishing Arc decks, which is one of the main selling points of this list, actually. Let's get into our next game. Looks like we're going first. And once again, it's this Forest Seal Stone saving us from embarrassment, really. The hand isn't ideal, that's for sure. We see a Manaphy. Always a nice card to see, actually. Even though it shuts off Urshifu, it often helps you in your goal of getting a Yoga Loop off or getting some easy single prize cards with Double Gunners and Alakazam. We don't get much going for us. I already have access to Urshifu VMAX, so I think that's why I'm valuing it over Intel, just because it's already in hand for next turn. So we'll just pass it over here. It's a bit of a worry if we're up against Guardy, because you really want to be attacking more proactively with your Inteleons, of course. But against pretty much everything else, because I have Urshifu in hand, it sounds like the better play. Turns out we're actually up against Chien Pao Bax Caliber, though. And the opponent actually Ionos us out of a ton of supporter cards. And into not much, actually. Yeah, this is a really slow hand for us. They're going to Mysterious Tail with Mew, another 60 hit point Pokemon. Love to see that. They're playing 60 hit point Friggies as well, which is great. We see a Pokestop pass, and the Pokestop might actually really help us here. Even just discarding water would be massive. We hit VIP and are able to discard a water, so now we activate Melony for some draws. I'm actually going to, I think Melony active and just go for a Smash Uppercut is probably our best play here, honestly. Because I'm worried that with their 7-card hand, they could just Shivery Chill a bunch and blow up our VMAX. And if that happens before I get value out of Rapid Flow, I'm in a really bad spot. So I'd rather just take the 1 prize now and start developing my board that little bit more. And sort of, at least I'm still forcing them to hit the Candy combo, but I'm still protecting my VMAX, so I don't want to just lose out on that value. I think I'm just debating whether or not I should remove the Pokestop, but our hand is still really slow, so I think keeping Pokestop around just for us for another panic play next turn could be big. So we actually allow them to keep the Pokestop here and take the first prize with Smash Uppercut. The opponent immediately goes Candy Bax. That's really nice, especially because it was pre-supporter. Then they can Shivery Chill, Pokestop away a couple Pokestops, sure. That means we're pretty likely to keep Tower for the remainder of the game, though, which is good. But they really are getting a ton of water in the mix. And they're just going to take the 2-prize knockout. Alright. A little bit scary because I haven't developed any double gunners yet. I'm really going to have to get on to that. Picking up the Iono from the top deck is actually pretty massive here. So that I can at least disrupt this hand a little bit. Going to bounce the Pokestop. And going to start with the hand disruption. We don't hit any Intel VMAX, which really sucks. I can Rapid Strike Search for 1 and just get 1 double gunner in. But our hand really isn't that good for next turn either. And if off the 4-card hand the opponent finds a way to Irida and find Superior, I'm actually in a lot of trouble here, because it wouldn't be too much to ask for, especially with the Shivery Chill, to go over the top of this Urshifu, and then we'd be really behind on prize cards. And wouldn't you know, the Greninja grabs Irida for Fish and Superior. So this Urshifu is going down, and we are many prizes down, which is very scary. There it is, the 360 no-scope on the Urshifu. Not ideal. Alright, so the Klara top deck, again, might save us. I think Runner top deck is keeping us in this game, where now I can Yoga Loop with Double Gunner the Friggybax. And that's actually huge. We We only have one Rapid Strike energy left, which is definitely a concern. But I think I'm immediately losing this game if I don't go for the Yoga Loop this turn and try and hit Rapid off prize cards, because I've prized one. We'll take our secondary turn now. Echoing Horn's really nice because we know they have 60 hit point Mons around, and we also don't want to open up the fish that's in their hand, so I'm not going to take anything out of play this turn. I definitely don't want to smash Uppercut. I definitely just want to say that hopefully without fish, they can't find their last energy remaining. I imagine there's like energy, or pretty much all the energy out of their deck at this stage, so it's really just them hunting for their next superiors once again, or hunting for boss. And by blocking Lumineon, I'm at least denying that. So even though their hand size is large, just giving them no cycle is probably the best thing I can do here. We're going to Irida, we're going to grab fish and rope by the looks of things, or possibly not, possibly just Ultra Ball. Neither are great, right? Because I want to keep this board space open for the fish for next turn, so I can... looks like we go for Superior, that's okay too. So yeah, we are going to block the option of the fish, which is kind of the biggest thing I can do this turn. Going to keep getting some guns out, and I think I just promote a big VMAX and hope for the best here. So as I said, definitely not taking out any Pokemon. I suppose with all our rapid strike energy spent, I may as well just hold everything here. And we are crossing our fingers that we can dodge boss/superior, I suppose. I don't lose immediately to Superior. Yeah, see, they only have one water remaining in the deck. We will see a Concealed cards, and that has to not be boss or anything else. They actually get candy backs, so we have a slightly more difficult route to close the game again, because we still have 4 prize cards to take here. They can Rod back some energy and go for another Shivery Chill. But I don't think that's enough to close. That's 3 energy. Oh no, only 2, because they spent 1 to conceal cards. So yeah, they just bank 2 on the active, the sort of healthier EX. I don't think swinging makes any sense. But somehow we got away with it, and now I can Yoga Loop again, and I actually have 2 turns to close out this game. And it's really not that tricky, I don't think, to close out the game if I get given 2 turns. We should be okay here. Was thinking about the spoons, but then realizing I want to fish for Irida here. I can't dodge the these options, especially if I'm taking Pokemon off the board. I want them to not have the fish in hand. So we will use our own just to set them down to 1. We are fortunate enough to find our next Gunner fuel, so we can set those down. We can start tutoring with Octillery. Looks like I'm grabbing Intel just so I can Ultra Ball next turn for an even lower hand size. The rope is pretty good here because it would force another... Oh no, it's actually not, because they could just promote Manaphy and it would not do anything. So we'll hold the rope for this turn, our second of our 2 turns in a row. And that's when it's more powerful. The Iono doesn't really do much. We know they're at a 1-card hand. We can freely rope. We have tons of free retreaters here. We're really just looking to see if we can find more water energy here to gun down the opponent. And we do find search and water, so we can deal with the Chien Pao, and if we hit Rapid Strike energy off the 2 prizes here, we just win. And we get the 66%, so a pretty slow start, and this is a setup deck. Sometimes your starts are slow, and then the game gets really cryptic and difficult, and against a 1-hit KO deck, things are tough, but we were able to scrape it out there with some wonky combinations and some heroic Medicham plays. Let's get into our final game of the day. Looks like we're going second, and we have a fish start, but at least we have VIP Forest and a supporter. So we have at least that going for us. And the opponent just goes, okay, Sableye attach pass. Okay, that's pretty good for us. We're going to VIP first, have a look what's in the prizes. So it looks like Remoraid was in the prizes, but also an Urshifu and an Intel, so spoiled for choice there. We can just grab multiple Intel quite happily. We're going to turn attach to the Lumineon because we really don't have that many switch outs. And because the opponent attached past, I'm not going to play supporter, I'm just going to hold out here. Possibly could have played the Forest Seal Stone just to VIP once again, but I really don't feel that pressured to, especially when they didn't have much going on. Turns out they're Giratina and are able to color us into Abyss Seeking here. So at least they're getting their Lost Zone fueled up. But again, no pressure from the opponent, which is at least something going for us. We're able to develop our Octillery and can now Iono them down to 6. We do find an Intel VMAX, and we can also Rapid Strike search for energy here to just hit the active for 140 and start getting some pings around the board. Just looking pretty good. I think there's no other single card I particularly need right now, so we'll just take the energy back to hand and try and two-shot this active Tina. The opponent still needs to get quite a few in the Lost Zone, probably needs to develop Comfey as well as Chorus again this turn if they want to get to 7 and Mirage Gates. And straight away they do have the Jet Energy for Flower Selecting. So I believe this gets them to 5. We see Nest Ball for Greninja. Manaphy's developed, but that's fine by us. And we do get hit with the Iono. We see a fresh 6. Not a bad 6, actually. We see Energy, we see Medicham and Alakazam, both decent to consider here. And the opponent just once again has to go for Abyss Seeking because they were not able to Chorus, so still a ways away. So we can continue to gun down our opponents. Probably want to burn these Nest Balls, even if I don't want to put anything into play. And the Iono looks pretty appealing again. Don't want to get rid of our Medicham. That would lock us into a Klara play. We're able to find our next Double Gunner as well, so things are going swimmingly there. We have Octillery, which can grab another Rapid Strike Energy if need be, but we actually take one off prizes, so we can grab something else here. We can just develop our next VMAX, I suppose, or Medicham for next turn. Looks like I'm eyeing up that play on Manaphy for next turn. I'm actually really close to closing out this game because we're going down to 3 prize cards and they have a heavily damaged Manaphy. We're actually really close to closing already, because the opponent had a slightly slower start. We've managed to hold off from using the Sealstone as well, so I'm feeling pretty good about any Roxanne or Iono. We finally see some gates being unlocked. And we see the Chorus. I believe that's getting them to 9. Obviously, Giratina can't deal with our VMAX unless they're V-Star powering. And even then, they still have another 3 prizes to get through, so they're still like 3 attacks away from winning this game at best. And we're much closer than 3 attacks. We see the Path, which does shut off a lot of our deck, and they actually have the Vacuum, which gets them to 10 and gets rid of our Sealstone. But they can't hand disrupt because they needed to Chorus to be able to get to the Requiem. So we do get to keep this hand, and I can easily Rapid Strike search for Stadium Bounce. We have Double Gunner available and Spoons, and I even have Ultra Ball for Medicham, so again I could be 2-turning here the Manaphy, and if I Double Gunner the Greninja, we can Urshifu snipe down the Comfey and Greninja if I have access to Melony over the next 2 turns. So I'm probably going to Iono this turn and try and find Melony for next turn is pretty much the plan. Failing that, we're at least putting our opponent down to that lower hand size. And we do find Forest Seal Stone again, so that's actually game once again. We can spoon 1 off Manaphy, put it anywhere, just because it's value. And finish off the Manaphy, and then we get to take our second turn. I can simply Forest Seal Stone for the Melony. And it's game again on the 2 single prizes on the bench. So happy days. we were once again able to close. And yeah, that's Rapid Strike Urshi Intel. When it sets up, the deck is seriously strong. We didn't run into any Mew, and we didn't run into Lugia. Those are the sort of worst matchups for the deck. So there is some dodge and weaving to do, but I do really feel this is a powerful strategy and one to respect going into the World Championships. I think Arc previously, before Urshi Intel had this massive result, was pretty much the safe play going into Worlds, and now I think it gives players a sort of a second thought and a bit of a pause for breath to see if they should pilot Arc at the World Championships. Let me know your thoughts down below. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you tomorrow for another video. Cheers.